Welcome to For the Love of Books, Bees Books Edition, a podcast by North Lanarkshire Libraries.
Hi, this is Pari.
And this is Jenny, and we're here to talk about
Bees Books. I love doing this flourish with my hands. It's not even something I think about. My body has trained itself to do
Flourish.
a jazz hand flourish to talk
Unfortunately,
about.
our listeners can't see that, but he described it very well.
Thanks.
So,
I mean, you can come up with your own flourishes. So when we say Bees Books, strike a pose.
Yes. I feel it was as if we should do an apology, first of all, Pari, for the slight rumbling noise in the background.
Oh, yes.
Unlike as usual, it is not our tummies this time.
It could still well be. Like,
Yes.
it could be in addition to. But this is some weird construction work that started as soon as we started recording.
Literally, yes.
They were just waiting for us to be like,
Yes.
those two.
Plus, it's also lunchtime when we record this, so you would think they would be away for lunch.
You're right. Why aren't they? Is this labour abuse? What's going on? Just go eat a sandwich, people.
It is, yeah.
Well, anyway, they can take care of their own food issues.
Yes.
What we are going to talk about today, as I remember, I do remember, is Visitor.
Visitor, yes.
So I've gone a little bit sideways.
Okay.
Well, not super sideways at the way that I usually do. I have completely lost track of what words are and what words mean. I'm just going to show you my books, Jenny.
Excellent,
I
excellent.
can't.
Maybe there's a visitor just kind of taking your words away from you.
Oh my God, we've already spoken about
that's quick.
ghosts. What are you doing? It's Halloween. It's the Halloween
Yes,
spooky spirit.
Exactly.
Oh no,
That
that was very loud. That wasn't the construction worker.
Oh.
So my first book is Comfort Eating by Grace Dent, and I'll tell you why it's a visitor in a second, but I want to know if you have any comfort foods.
Oh,
Like when you're feeling down in the dumps or when you need...
a big plate of pasta.
Oh.
Yeah, if I'm kind of like, need a bit of energy or whatever, nice big plate of pasta.
What do you put in the pasta? Is it
Just what's there.
Okay.
Yeah, so if there's something in the cupboard, it'll go in. If,
Yeah.
nothing in particular.
Cheese.
Lots of cheese.
Yeah.
And chives and herbs and things like that. Yes, pasta,
I think that's great comfort food. I think that's comfort food we're on first name basis, Grace would really approve of. Mine is really niche, but it's something that I discovered as a student here. I used to have different comfort foods back home. It's chips and cheese and spicy chicken.
Okay, you were with me with chips and cheese with spicy chicken
Oh,
as well.
it's delicious. It was like a
Interesting.
takeaway place in Glasgow. And I'd never had this combination before because it sounds really weird. And then when I lived in Hamilton for a bit, my partner found this place and sort of like they had really good chips and cheese and spicy chicken as well, another takeaway. And I've been chasing the high ever since of these two places. So whenever I'm like ill or, just like had a bad week or whatever, Jack will like order me chips and cheese and spicy chicken and him something normal.
So chips and cheese I love and spicy chicken I love, but to put them together is not something that I would
So
do.
it's a bit like gravy-ish. So it's not, I've had like bad chips and cheese and spicy chicken in which it's just more like a kebab chicken, which doesn't work. It has to be the juices, the chicken, like gravy, curry juices and the cheese and the chips all together, and it's super comforting.
Oh, it sounds lovely.
It's all the carbs, right? And the spice, the kick of the spice, really nice.
It
So the
is.
reason I ask is this is what the book is about. She also has a podcast. I think it might have started as a podcast and it's called Comfort Eating. Invites people over like celebrities, usually writers, actors or whatever, directors, and just invites them over to her house. So they're the visitors.
Oh, right, okay, I was wondering how this was going to get.
They are the visitors. I had forgotten, like I said, what our theme was. They are the visitors, and they bring in their favorite comfort food. So that and some of them are really unhinged, but they work. Like when you said chips and cheese and spicy, like but that's not the most unhinged. There's like a lot of like really, and she tries them all with gusto. And the book's just about her, like she talks about her relationship with food as well, like while she was growing up, the kinds of food she loved, and like the connections and memories that were with this food, because it was either her mum or like, you know, other family friends. And I just love that, like she has different recipes for different stages of her life as well. And just, it's about food, but it's also about people and connections between people, and how food can be used to build those connections, because that's what she does. I've listened to the podcast, love it. And I listened to the audiobook version of this, which she narrates. And she's like a friend. That's why I'm confident and comfortable calling her Grace. Because she's just such a friendly, comforting voice. And she doesn't believe in like guilty pleasures and stuff. She's like, if it's giving you pleasure, just eat. So she's not like, she's also like rejected people's comfort food. Like if they've like signed on a person and they are like trying to present, oh, this is the kind of comfort food that I have, but that's not actually comfort food. Like she has strict rules for comfort eating. She's like, things that require like this whole big sort of thing in the kitchen, that's not comfort food. You need to be able to either call a takeaway or like just whatever is in the and lots of cheese and butter. She loves cheese and butter.
Oh, okay.
So it's a comforting book. And I would totally recommend the audiobook version if you have access to that. I got it from another library. But her voice, even I think without being in your ears, is really personable and warm. And it's really easy, like it's small chapters, and like it's all about food, and there are some recipes as well from like some of the celebrities that she's had on. But the celebrities don't feel like celebrities because she uses food as a way to talk about their life. So they've brought in food, and that's just like a discussion prompt to talk about their memories of the food and their lives and what role it played. And sometimes it's sad, sometimes it's really happy, sometimes it's very silly and not at all serious. It's a mix. So like I really like this book.
It's quite interesting though, because they do say that taste and smell are like, you know, the forgotten senses, but they're the strongest senses. And just thinking about food and things like that, you know, we do have traditions, say for at Christmas and things like that, and you know, the turkey, or at Easter if you're having lamb, that kind of a thing, you know, it connects with that. So if you were to have that a different time of the year, your brain kind of associates it with
true.
So memories are definitely associated with it.
Absolutely. And like even if, for example, like I know some people who would have like grown up eating that and now are either vegetarian or whatever, but the sight and smell of that would still evoke these childhood memories and that sense of either comfort or maybe not. We don't know what their childhoods were like, but instant time travel to like another place, another sort of
And what's the weirdest that you remember?
I don't.
Okay.
I said it with so much confidence that some of the things I remember at the time thinking, and her reaction was like, what am I eating? You'll have to read the book to find out.
Good.
Or listen to the book.
Yes.
But the podcast as well. So like whatever podcasting apps you're listening to this to, or whatever is your preference is, I think like it's just so super low-key. So when you're making food and you're listening to that would be the perfect time.
That's a good idea.
And that's when I listen to all my podcasts. It's like catching up to do chores or like folding laundry or doing the dishes. But I think this would be good with like when you're sort of making food. And this time I think like autumn, winter is perfect comfort food time.
Absolutely.
Because you want to be a bear, you want to hermit.
Yes, absolutely.
And you just want to snuggle and like just listening to her dulcet tones.
It's kind of thick soup and stew and things like that this time of year. I think.
You'll get inspiration, you know, like if you listen to some and you'll be like, I never thought of putting, like you were saying to me, I never thought of putting those combinations together, but maybe I'll give it a shot, maybe I'll hate it, maybe I'll love it, but you know.
I pretty much add salad, cream and cheese to everything and just keep my fingers crossed that it works. And most of the time.
Yeah, you know, I love adding garlic to things that don't require garlic. I don't think the original authors of the recipe thought of them as garlic-based things. They're like, chuck a clove of garlic in there, let's see what happens.
It's interesting though that we both chose savoury food, whereas some people, if you say comfort eating, they would think along the lines of chocolate.
You're right.
Or, you know, something like that.
Oh, a chocolate cake. Actually, now that you say it, there's like, this sounds a little bougie, but the Patisserie Valerie chocolate cake, it to me is the ideal chocolate cake. Like, I think it's called double chocolate or something, and I just get a slice because I can't eat more than that. But you know,
I like the thought that somebody could.
Matilda, remember the movie or the
Yes.
book? And that boy who has to eat that cake, and as a kid, I was like, oh my god, that looks amazing. This cake to me, like, is like that cake, but in like normal quantities, not being forced by a trunchbull to eat the whole thing. But it's just like that. It's not nothing fancy. I mean, I guess it's fancy. It's patisserie Valerie, but it's like very simple cake. No like fancy jams or berries or whatever. Just simple chocolate cake. And I love it. So yes, thank you for reminding me. I have multiple layers of comfort.
So chips and cheese and spicy chicken followed by chocolate cake is what you're saying.
That's all 5 fruits and veg that the NHS recommends have been left out.
Absolutely.
Of this. Do you have a sweet comfort treat?
Oh, see, I do like carrot cake, but it has to be the right carrot cake, if you know what I mean. It has to have the right topping on it, and it has to have a tiny wee carrot on the top. Very particular, because there's a lot of carrot cakes out there that are just air.
What about the topping, like the cream cheese?
Yes, so it needs to be the right cake, because you get a lot that's more icing.
Oh, that's outrageous in my carrot cake with buttercream is just, why do you exist?
No, exactly.
Who do you exist to please? There must be somebody.
Yes.
But they can like have their like carrot cream with
yes.
Yeah, but the default should be cream cheese. I agree.
And it has to be quite thick. As I say, a lot of carrot cake seems to be like just air tasting like carrots or cake. But I like, you know, like proper.
Do you have a favourite recommendation?
I'm trying to scan my brain and I don't.
It's like my memory with like, that's fine. You just go on a quest.
Yes,
like
exactly.
I'm currently on a quest, as you know, Jenny, of finding the best hot chocolate in Glasgow. I haven't found it yet, but it keeps me exploring.
Exactly.
So carrot cakes, you know, try as many carrot cakes as you want.
Yes.
And now I would love to hear about your visitors.
So I have a few books here. We'll see what time we've got. My first one is The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. Now, a couple of episodes ago, I spoke about his latest book, The Last Murder at the End of the World.
Yes, I was like, did you? I don't remember who this man is. Yes, you definitely did.
So this is the book before it. I have fallen in love with this author and his style of writing. At the end of the other book, I loved his kind of thank you for, you know, I'm writing this book for blah 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 blah. I liked that, and I thought, I'm quite liking you. I'm going to read your other book, and this was fantastic. Absolutely, everything about it is fantastic, I have to say. So, first of all, this is no good for listeners, but the cover is just fabulous.
It is.
And I just love that the barcode here looks as if it's floating in the water.
Well, I was going to say it looks like a sinking ship. You're absolutely right. It looks like it's floating. It doesn't.
And the cover has in the water small skulls.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yes.
Halloween thematic.
Yes. So for something that looks kind of plain when you look at it a
Very
bit closer.
nice. Yeah.
So,
and this is the one set like pirates, did you say?
So it's set on a boat. The year is around about 1634.
Oh, so yes, pirates.
And basically, it's the kind of East India Company that was kind of big at that time, and the ship is going back to Amsterdam, I want to say, from somewhere far away, because the kind of main guy, the main dude, has this contraption that is going to change the way, like shipping lanes and things like that, so that they won't get captured by pirates and things like that. But to begin with, you are introduced to the two main characters, and they are very much a kind of mishmash of like Sherlock Holmes and Watson crossed with, somebody does say very well here, which I can't see.
So they're detectives?
Yes. So, I'm forgetting everybody's name.
That's okay, just make up a name.
Right, okay. Pipps, yes, Samuel Pipps is the kind of like Sherlock type thing, and he investigates things. He's into actually the investigating. He's not really interested in like people, or it's that kind of Sherlock Holmes. Just he's like concentrating on the mystery or the murder. And his sidekick is kind of like a bodyguard who is called something else. Arendt Hayes. And
that's a good name.
Yes, it's kind of a solid name. So basically Pipps has been arrested and has been taken back to Amsterdam, and you don't know why, and nobody else seems to know why either. So he's put on board this ship in a tiny wee kind of hole in the wall basically till they get there. Now you have to realise that the journey is going to take months, whereas nowadays you can get from A to B very quickly. This is going to take I think 9 months or something like that to get all the way around and back up again. So it's a long time to be stuck in a kind of basically prison on board a ship. However, the reason I've chosen it for The Visitor is because there seems to be yes, there seems to be a ghost or something that has boarded the ship
or
with
something.
Them. Yes. So basically,
that took a twist.
Yes, they're kind of warned away from going on the ship basically to begin with. And you're not quite sure why. It's one of these books that you kind of put in the middle of a story basically, but you kind of catch up. But they all go to get on board, and they all go because the big main guy wants to get back with his his important gizmo and things like that. Because when he does, basically he's going to be promoted inside the inner circle of this company, so he's eager to get there. Obviously he's the one that gets killed.
Right.
But I'm not describing this very well at all, Pari, and I do apologise, but I loved it so much, but I don't want to spoil it for anybody, so I'm trying not to say lots of things. So basically Pipps is locked in this room, and all these kind of weird happenings happen on the ship, and Arendt is basically told that he's to investigate because he's hung around with Pipps for so long. He should have picked things up, but he's just the bodyguard and kind of feels as if he's not equipped for that kind of a thing. So there's some other characters that are kind of brought on board the kind of detective team, as it were, and it's just a wonderful book. It's just one of these books.
So it's a mystery, or is it like the first one where it's a mishmash?
It's a bit of everything. So you could say it's a bit of a ghost story. You could say that it's definitely murder mystery. But there's like, not magic as such, but there's things happening in the background as well. Ooh. There's a whole big story as to why Arendt has ended up where he has, to do with this kind of devil type thing that's getting blamed for the things that are happening on board the ship. There also is another ghost ship that appears. So when they leave wherever they are, there's like a fleet of them. I think there's 7 ships all going the same place, and basically they try and go together so that it kind of dissuades pirates from coming. But all voyages like that, 1 or 2 of them are going to go off in a different direction by mistake and get lost or whatever, especially at night. But to begin with, there's 7 of these ships, but at night there's 8 lights. So there's like an extra light, as if there's another ship out on the water. And then something happens on board our ship, and then the light goes out, and it's kind of like, it's kind of, it's not spooky, it's not frightening in any way, but it's like, ooh, that kind of book.
But I really appreciate, I think, an author who takes risks like this in terms of his writing, because after your recommendation I did listen to the first book, the name that's completely escaped me, The Murder at the End of the World, The Last Murder at the End of the World, and it was such a mishmash of genres, and I think some people aren't into that, like readers, which is fine, because you want to either have a mystery, or you want a sci-fi, or you want a specific genre, and that's why the genres exist. But the fact that he not only wrote this one book that, you know, played with genres and things, but this one as well seems to be different, but he's having fun with it.
Yes, I would definitely say that he's having fun. And it's a bit like your food, you know, chips and cheese and salad cream is not going to be great for everybody, but if you're willing to give it a go, you might find that you like it, and I think that's with his books.
Oh, what a great connection. Yes.
I think in a way he's kind of writing for himself.
That's
you know
what I
mean.
was going to say, because it, like, from a publisher's perspective, I know how the marketing department in publishing is, like from first hand and second hand experience, that they do, even if the editors love a book, the marketing department, if they can't sell it easily, they'll be like, I don't think we should invest in this book. So it can be a bit of a struggle to like, you know, get a experimental book that doesn't neatly fit into, unless you're like a small publisher or whatever. But in this case, I think because the 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle became such a phenomenon, like, which I've still not read, but I know I've heard of, like, it's super popular. I think that also gives him the leeway to then like do all these weird things. And there's a reader for like bunch of readers.
Absolutely.
I think.
In a way, I wish I'd kind of read them the other way around, because I'm reading them backwards basically.
Yeah.
And although they're not connected in a way, I think you can kind of see, as you say, the kind of, you know, he's got a wee bit more kind of fun as he's went along because he can. You know, he's allowed to. But this one, I quite enjoyed the beginning. It's dedicated to Ada, I think that is, without my glasses on, who at the moment of this book was 2 years old and asleep in your cot. And basically it's like completely dedicated to her, about when she grows up and she kind of reads this, and I thought, oh, I like you. You're nice.
That's, yes. Well, that's an excellent segue into my second book, because my book is called, which you might know, The Tiger Who Came to Tea by Judith Kerr.
Excellent.
And like literally when the theme Visitor was first proposed a few weeks ago, this was the book that came instantly to mind.
However, I will remind you, when we mentioned the thing, you instantly said aliens.
That is true. I think you're right. You're right to call me out like that, because usually it's murder or
And
aliens.
I was expecting an alien book.
I did think of an alien, but that's why I was like, my default was alien, so which is why my sideways is like food and like a tiger. But I couldn't find the book in our shelves, like someone had rudely borrowed it. But then today, when I was looking, like I was just tidying up the shelves before our bookmark section, I saw it. I was so excited. I sat and read it to myself and giggled away. But the reason that I love there's not this book in particular, so I'll tell you briefly, if people who don't know, it's a picture book. Really popular. This is the 50th anniversary edition, and I'm pretty sure this is a few years old now. It's exactly what it says on the tin. There's this little girl and her mum who are just having an ordinary day at home, and then a tiger comes to visit, who is the visitor, and just, you know, is like a very I guess like nice enough house guest, isn't like offering to eat the child or the mother, but I think the mother and the child are very sort of concerned. I think that's the subtext. It doesn't come out in the text that this tiger might eat us, so we are going to offer like food in our kitchen. And the tiger just eats up everything, drinks up everything, including like all the water, so the girl can't have a bath in the end as well. And then it just ends with like the father taking them out for dinner, because like, oh, you know, you've had a rough day, and this tiger is like, who knows. It's just a simple story. The reason that I love it is because of the story of Judith Kerr herself. And I am currently, and like I always do, I love reading about authors, especially children's authors, but like I would love to read about Stuart Turton as well, the author of the books that you were just talking about, because I love getting into their brains and their lives, and how their lives influence the kinds of things they choose to write about. Like, of all the things you could write, what made you choose to like experiment in this case with like ghost ships and like dystopian futures and things? And Judith Kerr, she is German British, and she has also written this drawing on her own experiences when Hitler stole Pink Rabbit for kids. So this was when her, like, I think her father was like an academic or something in Germany before the Second World War, and they had to flee. They had to flee Germany and like come to the UK and sort of like start all over again. But she's written that for children, like from a child's perspective, because to make it, I guess, accessible, because we heard about all these things and we're getting farther and farther away from the events, and new horrors come to be. So I think, like, from a child's perspective, it's nice to make these big ideas accessible, but also it's really interesting. So I'm currently reading a book, like, separately, called The Haunted Wood, A Brief History of Childhood Reading, by Sam Leith, and it's basically like that, a history of British children's literature. And he's found that in so many instances, like, some sort of trauma, either like the World War II, or like personal trauma, has influenced so many lives of like these really popular children's book writers. Like, so it's almost like they've not healed their inner child, and they're writing for that child. So they're writing them the kinds of stories and lives and adventures that they would have liked to go on but couldn't. And it was such an interesting analysis, I thought. And so, like, when I was at a charity shop a few weeks ago down here in Coachbridge, I found like a Judith Kerr book, like a book about Judith Kerr, like this beautiful thing, which I should have brought.
Yes.
But I didn't know I was going to find this today. So I didn't know I was going to be talking about this book. It's called Judith Kerr's Creatures, and it's about her life, but also her because she illustrates the book herself as well. She started off as an artist and then started writing stories for kids when she had children. And I love that sort of a different way of glimpsing a person's life through the art that they create. And I also randomly in a vintage Sherman Paisley found another children's book about Judith Kerr's illustrations. I was like, this is like, it's a feast or a famine.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
It was a feast. So I'm really interested now to go back and read these books and then come back and read some of her other things. And just one more thing, it seems to be a Judith Kerr celebration, like, all over. I guess it's because of the mark she's left on so many childhoods. But I was in Newcastle last month, and I think I spoke about the Children's Literature Museum there, and they have a Judith Kerr room, like a whole exhibition. And the Tiger Who Came to Tea, they have like mural, like a giant mural.
Oh, fantastic.
The one, I'll tell you, the one towards the end, this one, where the father's taken the mother and the daughter out, and they're about in the city, and it takes up this whole big wall, so you could just be a person in the scene, and the rest of the wall has like pictures of all the scenes in the book. It's from her actual illustrations, so her original illustrations were donated, and it was so wonderful. It was like, and there was a kitchen, like the kitchen that inspired her to write, to set and like illustrate this one. So there was a kitchen in the corner, and then there was a kitchen you could play with, and there were these murals on the wall, and I was the only one there. And I was like, I'm just in a book. So it's like different ways of entering a book as well. So it's not really about the tiger, I guess. It's about children's books in general, but it's a good entryway into thinking about how books play a role in not just childhood imaginations, but when you grow up, you're bringing other people into the world with you.
Now remind me, did she write the Mog books?
Yes,
I
she
loved
did.
the Mog books, except the one where Mog, I'll not spoil it for people.
Oh,
you know
my
what one I'm
gosh.
talking about.
Yes, I do. Well, there was another, so there's, in this museum on another floor, there was like the genres in children's literature, so like comedy and tragedy and like adventure and whatever. And one of it was death. And I had to walk past because it had like her Judith, the last Mog book, and it had like pictures from it, like her original illustrations and like her notes and things. And like I just like read one page and like one panel, and I was like, I have a cat, I can't do this, I'm not ready, I need to just walk away. Oh, I could not, I'm still not ready to handle it. And I read, I think, the first couple of Mog books and like love it.
Yes.
It's a whole universe, right?
Yeah.
But she's written about that, I think, in one of the books that I've collected from charity shops, that she really wanted children to grapple with that as well, with death, and like in a healthy way, not in a healthy way. Yeah, well, yes, healthy way, by not pretending it doesn't exist.
Yes, exactly.
Because it was such a big part of her life, right? Like when she was like leaving and things, that this is a safe way to accept, although not so safe for Mog.
No.
But or the readers who are not emotionally prepared.
No.
But yes. But so she's like, I think she's responsible for a huge canon. And like each person must have like a different book that they really are drawn to. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about children's books basically.
That takes me to my next book.
Perfect. Did we plan this?
It would probably not be as good if we did. It's a teenage book. I'm showing you a slight corner there. And it is The Forest of 1,000 Eyes by the lovely Frances Hardinge.
I haven't read this
I know.
yet, Jenny.
So I seen this come in a couple of weeks ago and I was like, I'm having that.
Yes.
And I've hidden it from you since.
I haven't. You know, I think I saw it when it first came in and when like our co-worker was putting the books together, and then I got distracted and I was like, I'll see it on the shelf, and I never did.
No, you did not, because I had it all that time. And it is beautiful. So we've classed it as a teenage book. It's by Frances Hardinge, but it's also illustrated by Emily Gravett.
Another kidlit hero.
Is wonderful, wonderful. And it is a marriage made in heaven, basically. It is. If we had it in for our green topic, I would have used it because it's all blacks and greens and it's just beautiful.
Can you open it so I can see some of the inside?
And it is just
it is
absolutely
so it's
beautiful.
Green, the colour palette is green as well.
And it's just wonderful.
Yeah.
So how I'm squeezing this into our visitor theme
very curious
is that basically the forest has taken over the world, whether it's our world or a slightly different world, you're not sure, and basically humanity, or the people that were there, have built this giant wall to try and stop the forest encroaching any further, and it's not worked. So we're many years later and there's a pocket of humanity living in this kind of section of the wall, and they have to be very, very careful of what they do. So they all get their heads shaved because the forest the forest is almost alive in itself, if you see what I mean, and it kind of will send spores in and it will do damage. So they all have to get their hair shaved. There's like teams that go out and basically burn the outside of the wall so that everything's kind of killed, so nothing can come in. There's all sorts of weird and wonderful animals that are kind of hinted at that kind of live in the jungle as well, and they have to be careful of all of that. So our hero, Feather, she's basically one of the people that's going out to outside the wall to kind of make sure that there's nothing grown in to anything of it, and she meets someone. Now they don't think that there's anybody else, it's just kind of them, but this stranger, this visitor, has came along, so she kind of keeps him a secret.
Feather.
Yes,
Feather.
exactly. Yes. So he's kind of talking to her. He's very personable, as these people often are, these bad people, and discovers that they have a spyglass, a telescope, basically, and what they use it for is to see any movement in the jungle further off in the forest. That means animals are on their kind of migratory path somewhere, and they can put things in place. So it's really important to their kind of, I'm going to call it a village, and he finds out about this in his talkings to Feather, and basically does the whole thing of, why don't you show me it? Let me see how, So basically this visitor steals it and runs off.
Who could have guessed, Feather? Who could have guessed?
Now she's young, but she should know. She
should
know.
have been fed a diet of stories by her. I think it's the adults who have failed her.
Yes.
Because if they had, they don't have books or whatever, I don't know what this village system is, but they could have oral storytelling. This is where our fairy tales came from. None of them warned her to be wary of strangers.
No. So basically she decides that she needs to go after this guy who I cannot remember the name of. I'm useless.
Tim.
We'll call him Tim. To go after Tim to get this back, because obviously her village won't be able to, they'll be in danger now. So from his ramblings to her, he's kind of mentioned he's wanting to get to the sea and go somewhere else, because across the sea he's sure that the forest isn't going to follow. So she follows him as much as she can along the wall, which is kind of crumbling places. It disappears a wee bit and then appears again. and she discovers lots of things on the way. So although this is a teenage, I would say kind of not quite graphic novel, but that kind of thing, it could have been a 3-book series. You know, there's a lot of stuff, but it works not being that.
Yeah.
It works because of the pictures. The pictures kind of help like guide you through it, if that makes sense. And so when she discovers something, you know, there's a picture, which, as we know, says 1,000 words. So it kind of, the pictures really help the story along. It's not just very pretty, it helps it
but that's
move.
like picture books as well, right? Not just graphic novels, but even the picture books for really young people.
Absolutely.
They're in conversation with at least the good ones are in conversation with each other.
Absolutely.
So it's not just showing you what the words are saying, it's actually showing you more.
Exactly.
And it's bringing the illustrator's imagination and, you know, sort of skills to the author's words and creating something new together.
Absolutely.
And in this case, I would for sure read about Emily Gravitt's life, Frances Harding's life, how their brains work.
Yeah.
Would 100% read books about them.
But it's lovely, even when there's nothing really happening.
Yeah.
There's leaves and insects on the page. She's got a kind of sidekick, which is a kind of scaly ferret, I want to say. A lot of the animals aren't as we would know them, if you know what I mean.
So they've like gotten into the next stage of evolution.
There's like huge giant beetles and things like this. This is the guy's name. I'm going to get you.
Ooh, thanks, Jenny. Merrill Dunn. Merrill Dunn.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Also known as Tim.
Tim, yes. But it's such an interesting idea as well, that basically this forest is basically taken over. You know, that it's almost alive in its way, that it's kind of
alive in a way that's actually engaging with the humans.
Yes, and it's out to get them.
Well, fair enough.
And I'm not going to spoil the ending for you, because I know immediately as I've returned this, it will be on your ticket.
Today. But just sort of related, I think I'd love to recommend a TV show for you and for people who are interested on Netflix. It's called Kipo and the Age of the Wonder Beasts. It's one of the my favorite things that I've ever watched. It's 3 seasons or something, and it's sort of set in this future where humans are living underground and nature has taken over above ground, so they don't go up because they're like, we don't know what's going on there, and it's led to these creatures that have evolved differently. Some of them who talk and things, like there's cats and like all they talk, so it's a very different kind of like sort of future, I guess, and humans are the minority rather than currently where we are the majority. But it's such a hopeful, joyful book series, because there's lots of music as well, and Kipo is just fantastic, just positive, radiates joy and everything, and sort of discovers another side to her, and like about how nature and like humans are nature, but how like other parts of nature and humans can learn to coexist again. So it's not about, I mean, it starts off with waging war on nature, and then it ends with, it develops into a different kind of story, and it's just fully recommend. It's just beautiful. It's for kids, ideally, but it's not. It's for everybody, and it's one of the best things I've watched.
I quite like the idea as well that, you know, when you think of these kind of futuristic things, you kind of think of the Earth being scorched and you know, covered in robots. I quite like the idea that, you know, nature has taken control and just went, pah, humans, and has basically, you know, developed itself to make us not dominant as we are just now.
Exactly, and I think that's a hopeful view of the future.
Yes.
It's a less egocentric view of the future, where humans are not the be all and end all of life. Like, even if, like, I don't want this to happen, obviously, but even if all humans die out, the planet is still going to be okay. It's going to, you know, or there'll be another, like we've talked about this from like a science fiction perspective and stuff in other books we've discussed, but we don't know what humans will be in like 1,000 years, 10,000 years or whatever. And it's nice that art and stories like this present different perspectives, and not just this dystopian gloom and doom one, but like a more, I don't know, positive. Everyone won't consider this positive, I guess, but I would consider it more hopeful view of the
Yes,
future.
And it's nice to think that these stories will be there in the future. You know, that, you know, unlike Feather, who's not got any books to go to guide her, you know, that there will be books that will be there, and hopefully, you know, somebody would look at them and go, we should have learned by now, or, you know, the stories would still be there.
Yeah.
You know, the tiger who came to tea will always be, it's 50 years old, it's got a good chance of...
Yeah, I mean, if there's still paper, or there'll just be memories.
Yes.
So maybe the tiger will turn into something else, like another creature from the Forest of 1,000 Eyes.
In your museum with the big mural on the wall, could be there forever.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
true. And then, like, future sort of people or whoever is on Earth will come into these ancient ruins and be like, oh, look at the art of the ancients here.
Although I'm slightly disturbed that they would think there was real giant tigers that came to tea, but, you know...
Seems friendly enough. You know, just drank all of Daddy's beer. Okay.
Archaeologists have been doing that for years, haven't they? Just kind of making stories around
Exactly.
their
They don't know
discoveries.
what's actually going on.
No.
So like this sort of stories we think were happening, and they were like, this is just a ball, bro. This is just a football we used to play with. It's not that deep. But yeah. I hope
Yes.
future archaeologists do think
Yes.
there was an actual life-size tiger.
And that brings us nicely to Bee's next theme.
Oh, does it?
Yes, it does.
Oh, what
Sorry.
is-
Yes.
I thought
Unless
you
you've
had
got another
another
book hiding away.
No,
in
I
there.
thought you did.
No, I do, but I'll save that.
Okay.
The next time our podcast is broadcasted, it will be Book Week Scotland.
Uh-huh.
And the theme for Book Week Scotland this year is hope. So Bee has decided that we're going to be doing hope.
Oh,
Hope
okay.
and inspiration, though. She's given us a bit of wriggle room because hope
Right.
is quite...
Now again, right, like stay with me. A person who is inspired to commit murder
Yes, you can do
is,
that.
is quite hopeful to other murderers. Like,
I can see it's going to be an
I am
interesting
a
chat.
successful, like, oh, look, this is a role model. This person has planned, murdered, success. Was caught, obviously was not the smartest murderer of the bunch.
Yes.
We will be different.
Yes.
We are hopeful of a different future.
But then I was hopeful for an alien book this time, so I'm not.
That was too obvious, Jenny. A visitor, alien. No, I want to go with life-size tigers who might have developed alcoholism.
Yes.
So yes, thank you very much for your books.
And thank you.
And yes, you're welcome.
And also, my tummy has been rumbling because we were talking about food right at the beginning.
That's
So-
true. And we spoke a lot about food, and you've not had lunch
No,
yet.
exactly.
So I think it's time for us to go, and
Yes.
next time be hopeful and inspiring for B.
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening.
Bye.